to start our work session here. We get a little feedback here from the mic.
Is that mic on?
She can adjust it over there. Yeah. I'll have to turn it down here so they don't see it. Okay, so it's time to start our work session here. And we have Mr. Charlie Smith from the Barge Design here to talk about. And I see several folks here that has a business or resident over in the area that we was hit with a few weeks ago. And so we got our engineers to talk about exactly what we can do better and be maybe a little bit better prepared as far as drainage concerns and things of that nature. So Mr. Charlie Smith with the Barge Design, if you don't care to come to the podium and tell us what you found or didn't find.
Thank you, Mayor. Came up a couple of weeks ago and drove around during the flooding event that was happening. I don't think it was the worst of it, but it was already flooding the businesses there along 111. That particular spot where Dillon Pond all drains to, clearly it's water. Adrian looked up what the rainfall event was, and it wasn't particularly intense at any one time. But obviously there was a lot of water cumulatively. And by anecdotal information, Dillon Pond drains via a sinkhole, and it didn't look like there's any other outlet other than overland flow once it gets too high, and that's what we were seeing during that event. It appears that there's enough relief in the elevation between where Dillon Pond crosses 111 there that could potentially come down North Church Street and relieve that area via Town Creek. You'd want the key there would be to make sure that you allow Town Creek to pass the water that it needs to pass during its rainfall in the way that Town Creek operates right now. But you could relieve Dillon Pond. I want to not use too many engineering terms, but there's a rainfall hydrograph, and the way that it acts as Town Creek releases water and the way that Dillon Pond would want to act, you just don't want those two peaks to happen at the same time. So you would allow the water to pass from Town Creek, and then you could release some water from Dillon Pond before it would flood the businesses along 111, and very importantly, before the pavement would get underwater at 111 and result in another closure. So during the rainfall that we saw and during the flooding event that we saw, Town Creek was already in good shape. And what I mean by that is it was not flooded at the same time that Dillon Pond and the valley and that whole other area is flooded. So it appears that you can some relief that way. So then the question that we would always ask is, okay, you know, just put a pipe in the ground for free. What are we talking about? You know, how much does something like this cost, and who has to be involved? Because it's 52 and 111, TDOT would have to be involved in that project in some fashion. Because their roadway was flooded, also, our past experience is that they would typically be, at the very least, interested in a project like that. We would hope that they might want to participate in some fashion. So that's kind of where you start that conversation with TDOT, is it looks like there may be some kind of feasible engineering solution. I don't know what size pipe you could do, because you would have to study Town Creek, which is not it's not a stream that's been completely studied, so there isn't a ready model. So you'd have to make a model of Town Creek so you could understand how the water behaves in Town Creek, so that when you tried to relieve water from Dillon Pond into Town Creek, again, you didn't overwhelm Town Creek. But just in a drive-by of all of the waterway and the structures that go from Town Creek all the way to outside of town, the water treatment plant.
Charlie, excuse me,
I'm sorry,
can you have one big come in here, please? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim, let us know.
Yeah. The Town Creek itself, just on a drive-by look at it, the structures that are there appear to be of sufficient size that you could put some additional amount of water there without having to make a bunch of improvements to Town Creek. Now, there may very well be, culverts or existing erosion issues or something like that there now, and I'm not speaking to that. I'm just strictly from a capacity standpoint, it looks like you could put some more water in. So the question is, when could you put the water in and how much water could you put in? And again, I can't answer that, just standing here. You'd have to study it so that you'd understand how much water could you put down there. But it does look like that would provide some relief faster than trying to pump it out. The pumping that occurred was a good idea, but you could probably do something that would be a little bit more predictable than that. So I also spoke with TDOT just to get a basic perspective on, were you aware that your road flooded? Of course they were. And what did you think, what are you guys looking at that? Are you trying to resolve any of it? They didn't have any plans for doing anything with it. And that was their early indication. And we just spoke to the local folks there, Region 2. We didn't take it up to Nashville. We didn't talk to the regional engineer. Just wanted to talk to the folks at the bottom end of the chain to find out what they had heard or what they were thinking. So, what kind of questions do you have?
Council?
Mr. Smith, this is Kelly calling. I have a few questions. You mentioned early in your presentation that it appears that Dillon Pond drains into a sinkhole. What evidence do you have to support that is in fact what's going on?
Just the anecdotal information. I've not seen the sinkhole. If it exists, it was underwater.
Right.
I didn't observe any method by which Dillon Pond drains, and I couldn't see anything, but as I understand it, there's a sinkhole.
All right. And secondly, you mentioned that it could be possible to place a pipe. I'm in the construction industry, and I'm a little bit confused what that might look like, because in my estimation, this is most likely going to require a pump station and lines that perhaps do feed to Town Creek, etc. Is it your opinion that a pump station might be needed, or would it be gravity flow from this said spot via pipe, or what were you thinking?
Just looking at it, again, just eyeballing it. I don't have a survey, I don't have any of that specific information, but eyeballing it, it looks like you could gravity flow it from the existing retention area that's on the southeast corner, which as I understand is the lower of the two sort of pond areas. There's one on the southwest, one on the southeast. And I understand that they're connected by a pipe so that it flows from the southeast to the southwest and then back into the pond. I haven't seen any drawings, but that's my understanding of how it functions. And it looks like there's enough change in elevation between Town Creek and that southwestern pond to be able to run a gravity-fed pipe.
Okay.
So that's what it looks like.
And thirdly, I guess my question would be, you stated that the city could, quote, probably do something, end quote. So my question is, what would be your professional recommendation for this body to go to the next step? Because basically what I've heard you say is hypothetical information. So how do we engage formal studies, formal investigations with survey information? What would be our next step in your opinion?
So there, a couple of questions came up when I was speaking with the folks at TDOT. And because part of what I was asking them about is, you know, have you had this problem before on 111? They indicated they had. I don't have any specifics about that, but they said they've had water problems on 111. So I would want to know a lot more about that history. You know, go ahead.
Okay, specifically to that, there's been a great deal of speculation among the citizens, especially those who've been directly affected, that our new highway that we've been fortunate to gain 52 north there from the four-way, we went from basically a 3-lane highway to now, you know, in essence, 6 lanes, including the center turn lane. And so in the last council meeting, I formally asked that we get a copy of perhaps the hydraulic study that TDOT would have done in their design phase of this new project. Would that be something that you might be able to gain on our behalf to sit down? I don't think that you're going to get what we need at the local level of TDOT. I believe you're going to have to go to Nashville. But I think we're really interested and curious, since we've never seen this type of flooding before, if in fact the new road has in fact you know, contributed to our problem. Because previously we didn't have storm drainage, we didn't have a curb and gutter, so there was, you know, some runoff of course, but it was going into a grass shoulders. This is specifically being trapped, contained, and being dumped intentionally into Dillon Pond. So I think there's no doubt that some of us with, you know, some, I guess, experience maybe feel like that is a contributing factor.
Okay.
So what do you suggest we do in that respect?
If the documents still exist that show the drainage study and the plans, if they still have all of that, I assume that we could get it, you know, to your first question. And I don't have any way to know whether the roadway contributed or not. I'd have to see it, you know, what was the before condition and what was the after condition, and what assumptions did they make when they were doing the improvement.
Okay, before we go any further, I would like to ask if it's possible, for the benefit of everyone here, including your team, that Mr. Wayne Peak come to the podium and describe to the public basically what I've heard him describe to myself and to other people, maybe more of a private setting, his experience and knowledge about this supposed sinkhole and the drainage of the sinkhole. There's been wide speculation that the city of Livingston some years ago went and basically filled the sinkhole full of concrete, and therefore the sinkhole can't drain, and that's why we have this problem. I don't think that's accurate, and I would like for Wayne, if he would, be willing to come to the podium and explain firsthand what that situation is.
I'm not standing right here, I don't care about going that far. But as far as the sinkhole, the pond went dry back when Charlie was here. Went all the way dry, we went over and dug out the sinkhole, and we put a tile straight down, put shot block around it. And the only concrete was poured was a path around it. And, you know, there's another big sinkhole fell out behind it. If silt filled it up, that's probably what stopped it. But as far as us stopping it up, we ain't missed it.
Thank you. So I just want the public to know that the city did not go and fill that sinkhole with concrete. I guess, so we're really looking for help and for answers and for solutions. I'm not sure that, I may be alone, but I'm not sure that we really have heard from you what your professional suggestion is in terms of where we go from here.
Yeah.
Charlie, we've just, excuse me, we've just got a lot of concerned citizens here that was affected during this flooding. And I know, like me, they're looking for answers as well, and looking for the city to be able to do something to minimize any more damages if this was to occur again. So we're kind of leaning on Barge here to kind of tell us what to do or what directions to go in the next step.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Yeah, So my specific suggestions are that you do try to understand, how did the thing used to operate? Has it changed over the last several years due to whatever changes might have occurred, whether it's the roadway or whether it's, I don't know what else has been constructed. As I look at the,
It's the only thing.
okay, but the widening part, I get that. I have a hard time seeing how the widening would have done anything, but again, I don't know what the plan was.
Because it added more surface area.
Sure.
Solid surface area that is trapping water.
Yeah, and that part of it makes plenty of sense, but I'd have to see, again, what exactly were the changes.
Right.
That part shouldn't be too hard to get at.
Right.
I'm curious about when 111 was originally constructed, okay, what was that drainage plan and how did that look with Dillon Pond? That's what I'm most curious about is how was it supposed to function? And I realize that 111 didn't design Dillon Pond, but it would have been something that would have been at least a consideration in the project. You're now building essentially a dam with 111 in front of it, so what were the assumptions there?
Right.
That's what I want to know first.
Yeah.
The reason being, not because it impacts the solution, but it impacts who's involved in the solution and who has to pay for it. Okay, as I think about Livingston, number one, we want something that protects the property and the citizens. Number two, we want it to be as economical as possible. And if there's a way for other partners to participate in paying for it, just personally, I'd be interested in that for your well-being.
So how do you start that process?
To look into what exactly is the history of it. So get the plans and whatever documents exist about 111 as it initially was constructed and whatever changes happened on 52. So that's step number one, to understand that. But also, if there is going to be a fix that involves anything other than just some type of sinkhole remediation, then you want to look at Town Creek and understand how much water can you put in Town Creek, so you have to have a model of that, and then how much water can you add to it so that you don't compound the drainage at the same time.
Okay, so bottom line, my question then to you, Mr. Smith, is with all due respect, I don't feel like that I've gained any additional information after hearing you than I previously knew. So my question to you is then, is this an issue that Barge has the capacity to come back to the city and present us a proposal, professional services, fees, et cetera, to further study this? And that maybe the next step?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what do you think the fee might look like for us to do a formal study?
So off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what the fee would be for everything I just described, in part because I would hope we wouldn't have to do all of it. Okay, and what I'm saying is if looking at the plans about how 111 and 52 were modified, if that seems to present some kind of solution to it, then I wouldn't want the city to pay for all the modeling and everything that would want to happen on Mill Creek. I'd want to find out, is there somebody else that can participate so that the city doesn't have to bite out the whole thing, even all of the study. And I don't have any control over whether TDOT would partner on that, but I would want to know that before I presented you with some big contract.
So I think what we'd like to do is, we'd like for Barge to go ahead and do the study with TDOT, and then get us a number on what it would cost. And by then, I think maybe you could come back to us and tell us what you can get from TDOT or what you can't.
Yeah.
And that's where the savings would be. The more you can get from TDOT, the minimum it would cost the city of Livingston.
Well,
Right.
is there some other solution
Right.
that presents itself that doesn't involve having to run a pipe down there?
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, I think your first step, though, to us is going to be to present us with a fee to do a study,
Okay,
right? Isn't that right?
sure. I would suggest the study be two phases.
Right.
The first one being what happened you know, what was the pre-existing condition and what happened with the changes they made? And does that represent any other solutions? If it does, then the second proposal would be hopefully something that somebody else would pay for to make a fix. But if it doesn't present any other solutions, and if TDOT is not willing to be a partner, then, okay, here's your options for how you can handle this yourself.
Right.
And again, in the quick drive-through and looking at it, it looks like a pipe is a solution, but I would hope that there would be something else simpler, cheaper, that could also present itself. Is there any evidence that there was a second sinkhole? Is there anything else that can be done that's easier? I don't know the answer to that.
Do you have any experience exploring sinkholes?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'm gonna let Adrian talk about that. We were just talking about the way out. This
Okay.
is his building.
I mean, we just bid on Friday 3 sinkhole remediation projects where we're gonna excavate down, remove the old sand pipe, uncover the rock surface and do new, essentially, sinkhole remediation on 3 sites in Montgomery County. That bid this past Friday. So we do have experience, we've got geologists on staff. What we did on those is geologists would come out and do some probes and find where the rock surface is. That lets us know then we can survey the sand pipe and know if we've hit the rock surface or not. But ideally what we'll do is come back in a construction phase, uncover that, evaluate what the rock surface looks like, make sure we get the sand pipe on the sinkhole throat or somewhere near the sand pipe. It's the tile that it's a perforated metal pipe.
Is that what's in there? Do we have that in our sinkhole? This sand pipe.
It's on the tile, and hold.
Where is the said sinkhole at? That we have?
Over by the upper Cumberland. If you ever go through there in summertime, you see that little concrete pad? It's right there, but there's a bigger one fell out against the road in here.
I know pipe is expensive, I'm looking to put it behind my place. But if we did go to the sinkhole, we'd have to be pumping up the hill. I think, our best bet would get a figure on getting those holding ponds and going to the town creek. I think that would be nice.
I would pipe into Town Creek is a more predictable solution. Not to say that folks don't drain the sinkholes, but you can clog with sediment, things like that. The rock's always going to dissolve whether you've got it designed perfect or not. And you know, you have some dissolved rock and then it falls in and stops something up. Now you don't have a sinkhole that's draining anymore.
So in your experience then, sinkholes are always gonna stop up and are not meant generally as a remedy for overflowing streams or ponds, right?
Well, they are used all over the place to drain, but the reason the sinkhole is there is because limestone is dissolving in the presence of water by virtue of, you know, so folks do use them. They are a method. The state has a standard injection well permit, which what that is, where you're letting water drain down the sinkhole, but by virtue of you forcing water down the sinkhole, it will, over time, continue to dissolve. So, I mean, it will be a maintenance issue. The pipe is closer to the surface, people can see it. It is a more, so what, you know, what typically would happen in a perfect world is you could still drain to the sinkhole but have an overflow somewhere else, so that it gives you an added protection in case something wants to happen, it wants to start to flood the road again.
Thank you.
So this is a work session, and I know there's several folks here that had a business or has a business, also residents from the area if you'd wish to speak, you can. You might have been here just to listen to the conversation, I'm not for sure, but certainly we'll give you ample time to speak before we go in the council meeting. It looks like the city, and of course this is a work session, so there's not any voting that goes on even during this work session, but we will have a regular scheduled meeting in the next 7 or 8 minutes, and we have this on the agenda. Now, certainly can't speak for the board, but it appears that that we are very interested in trying to find a solution to this problem, so it won't happen again. But I say that, but also I will open the floor if anyone would like to speak. I will give you 3 minutes or however you need. Go ahead, Ms. Pat.
Okay. Well, I would like to, my part of it will be about the sinkhole. I've been over there 28 years, and in about 2000, I was contacted by a committee that was going to clean up the pond, and we went through all of that, and they were going to do the walkway and all that stuff. So by 2000, when the first time I got flooded, my driveway's flooded. And so about the third time it got flooded, I found out about the sinkhole that they had went in, the city had went in. But let me back up a little. They said they wanted to make it look better. So they contacted an engineer, and he advised them to not mess with the sinkhole if they wanted it to look better, because if we had a drought, the pond got low and it looked bad and it smelled bad as the fish died. So he advised them to dredge it out and said, if you bother the sinkhole, you can cause flooding. But they wanted the water level to come up high. That's what I was told, so it would be high. Well, by 2003, I had flooded my driveways 3 times. And so I really feel like in all those years, the sinkhole really took care of the pond. So whether it did or not, I don't know. But this time, I mean, I had 30 inches in my shop for 12 days. And we don't know whether we can go back in, we will flood again. We've got to have a solution, and you got to have a sinkhole to drain it, or you got to have a pipe. And there's lots of people here that's affected by it. And I really do feel like the road has contributed a lot to it. And something that wasn't brought up was that the sinkholes on the new road up there have been filled in. At the top of the mountain going up to Teddy Garrett's, there was a big sinkhole there. It's not there anymore. There's lots of stuff that's been filled in, and there's nowhere for that water to go. And I've walked it and looked at, and those drains coming into the pond, you could run a Volkswagen through them. So we're getting a lot of storm drainage off of that road, I would think. But whatever the problem is, I hope we don't talk for a year and just do reports, and surely the state still has their plans that they had. I mean, the new road ain't been done that long. And I like for Cooper to tell about his place, because he has water just when we have rains because of the new road.
Surface work.
Yes, since the new road came in, we had, they put us a new entrance in, and half of when it rains real hard, half of our parking lot is full from the 111 side. We're losing 75 feet. So that's gotta be too much runoff coming on us from the new road.
And yet, I would try that.
So Charlie, I think you've heard from some of the residents and the businesses here on their opinions on where a lot of this water has came up on us. And so, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head though when you said you wanted to go to TDOT and maybe pull up some engineering reports and things of that nature. So, how long do you think it would take you to contact TDOT maybe and get the records that you need to kind of review.
Well, I can contact them tomorrow. How quickly can I get at the information? I assume within a week or so. I could get at the information.
Mr. Smith, during one of our 911 emergency meetings here during the flooding, one of the TDOT representatives, the regional engineer of Bow Hospital, stated openly in that meeting that the new road did not contribute
Okay.
to the flooding. So you're gonna have to go beyond that first.
Yeah. Sure. It just, I can't predict exactly what we're gonna find, but, the comments about sinkholes being filled in, you know, that kind of thing gets my attention. So I'll be looking for anything like that. But again, my bigger question is when it was, when, not the extension on 52 and the widening, but when the whole intersection was originally constructed. That's really what I'm interested in. But we'll keep our eyes peeled for anything we hear.
This is our observation, Mr. Smith. I agree with your research on what Kelly said too about the sinkholes, and Pat, I feel sorry for all business owners that had to deal with that, you know, with the water. There's gotta be a solution. There is some photos that exist, I believe, of how this was flooded years ago. Mr. Rogers has lived there for a long time. And, you know, even before the road and the thing was equipped, there was a little bit of flooding, but not near what there is now. And so I think with a little bit of research, we may even find some pictures that shows how the flooding has increased since the 70s or whatever before, Carl, because it did, but not near like it did now, did it?
If the pond hadn't already been full, we wouldn't have had a big problem. If it had been down, we wouldn't have the flood.
Exactly.
Okay, you sinkholes, there's two on the new road up next to Upper Cumberland.
Right.
They fell in on the new road, they each been filled in.
Correct.
Over next to the jail, the city put a gas line in over there. That water there flows out there to Town Branch. That was the way it was designed when the new one leg was built years ago.
Yeah. And some of these are in pictures in the 70 newspapers and early, so maybe we could even try to locate those and see those before the next meeting and view them and see exactly what. Because there was a sinkhole on the White property, but it was too far away too at one time, I believe, back over there behind. Anyway, thank you.
Charlie, we meet again on May the 6th, and that's just a little over a month. Can you come back and have a plan of action, and the steps that the city would need to take to go ahead and, steps that we could take to fulfill the plan of action, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that okay with the council?
This is gonna be expensive.
The fix is gonna be expensive? Well, I hope not.
But we have to do whatever it takes to mitigate this potential in the future.
Yeah, it was a good sized problem, no doubt.
And also, when you come back, I figured you will have a estimated cost on what it would cost to fix it, along with what it costs for the study, things of that nature, okay?
Yes, sir.
Is there any questions for Mr. Smith?
It's going to cost him his study, correct?
Yeah. Is there any questions? Does anyone from the public want to say anything?
I'd like to say one more thing. After the flooding and all this was over with, our property was reassessed. My property right now, my land value is appraised at $5,000. And my whole property, $20,000. So that's how much our land value evidently has went down. And like Lee has got his property next door, they were knocked down, how many $100,000?
Right at $200,000 of assessment.
And, you know, since I've been there, I've paid $50,000 land taxes. And, you know, it's just not a good thing
Mr. Smith, I think the hearing from the various folks from our community can be valuable information for you. And they may have a lot of insights about specific issues, sinkholes, this issue, that issue, that perhaps could really help you with your study. I am curious though, either Lee or Pat, so the county has come out and reassessed your property value following the flood? Or was that just a normal assessment? How does that happen? I'm not sure I understand that.
Well, I wouldn't pay my taxes the week of the flood, they're due the 29th, and I like to keep my money until the last week, so I paid my taxes the last week. And so I asked her about next year, I said, what's this gonna do to our taxes next year? Because I pay $2,000 in city and county taxes. And she said, well, they'll be reassessed. So I'm sure they came and done it for that reason. But like I'm having people contacting me wanting to buy my property, which I don't wanna sell it. But if they look at my real estate assessment, my property is $20,000, so that don't go good for us.
No, I understand, I agree. I do know that the county-wide, we are due for a complete reassessment 2020. That may be what, that's maybe what Karen was referring to. Lee, you said that your property value has dropped 200,000?
Yeah, we were assessed at 296, and Kira has came in and reassessed it. Now we're at 100,000 now. And like Pat was saying, Randall and I went over to talk with her about why that played out. And she was just saying that she was just giving us time to pretty much see what we were going to do down the road, and then give us a break on the land taxes for next year. So we're in a limbo period here about what we're going to do with some of the businesses that might come back and might not come back. So something does need to be done to prevent this from happening again. So that's what I understand.
Thank you. Mayor, are we going to hear in the regular meeting, I know we're going to have a report from Chris Massengill, is he going to present something to us regarding the status of TEMA and possible money that could be distributed to affected property owners, et cetera? Is that going to be in his report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Massengill is here now during this work session. I've got him on the agenda, but we want to go ahead and talk to him now. Mr. Massengill's here. Mr. Massengill, you care to come on up and just, Chris is the director of Oregon County Emergency Services, so.
Good evening. Chris Massengill. FEMA today has not had any update. We met with FEMA here last month, or at least 2 weeks ago. And they did what they did was an assessment to see if we qualified. I don't think there was any doubt that we qualified. And then he told me the report would be done at the end of that week. And so that's been sent off. Of course, it has to. There are 62 counties in the state that they had to assess. Now, whether all that's been turned into the Atlanta office of FEMA and on the president, I haven't heard. And I know we have not been granted anything as of yet. They did tell me there would be no IA, which is individual assistance. There's 3 sections. PA, which is public assistance, which goes to uninsured county, city, municipality losses, such as the city of Livingston, Oregon County Highway Department, Upcoming Electric, Twin Lakes Telephone, agencies like that. That I don't think we'll have any problem with. Then you have IA, which is individual assessment, which is homeowners. And we do not qualify for homeowners. We had to have 25 homes that were had major damage or completely destroyed. We did not have that, so we've been telling those folks and getting them in contact with church organizations that have been helping them. And then the other is a small business. If we get approved for a declaration from the president, then the small business will come in and offer some type of assistance. I can't tell you what, but we'll offer some type of assistance, and it's usually in low interest loans to the business owners. And that's where we are right now.
In your experience, how long do you think it takes before a determination is made if a
it's very quick. What they do, the process is lengthy as far as federal government giving us the declaration. But once that happens, then there'll be a team meeting. They'll come together and they'll meet with all the agency heads, and then they'll have a day or days that they will open up an office here in town and allow all the business owners to come and apply. And it's usually a pretty quick turnaround. Usually that same day, they tell them whether they qualify or not.
But it's only in the form of a low interest loan, is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know that. I don't know what they will offer, but in the past, that's what they have done is low interest loans. Now, there may be some grant money out there. I know we'll have some mitigation funds that are possible to go toward your study, go toward the, fixing the problem, whatever the problem ends up being. We should have some federal funds for that. Now, how much, I don't know.
Thank you, because I know there's folks out there that, they're here today that would like to have some help restoring their property, restoring their business, restoring their residence. And as Kelly said, how long do you think we will know one way or the other if they could possibly get some assistance?
Well, the state had to achieve $8.5 million, right at $9 million worth of damages across the state. Each county has a threshold, and like I said, they had 62 counties to assess. We were one of the first ones that they came to, and I don't know if the complete report is done for the entire state, or whether it's been turned in. They didn't have that information as of yet. Apparently, they are done visiting all the counties, but compiling the data and turned into the FEMA office in Atlanta. I don't know if that's been completed yet.
And Chris, I know that I wore you out trying to get some answers, simply because our businesses has contacted us, or a board member here, or myself, to see where we're at. And unfortunately, we know government moves slow sometimes, and I hate that, but that's the way it was, and we had the flood in '09. But so again, I've got the folks here, so what are we telling them? Hurry up and wait? I mean, what?
Hurry up and wait. That's the game, unfortunately. And as soon as I hear something, I will let you know, and you can pass that word on.
And then the city, I guess, will put a notice and we'll have a meeting, open meeting that he described.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There was no question that Overton County qualified.
Yeah.
We met our threshold. Our threshold was 83,000, and just the highway department alone met that one. They had over $150,000 in uninsured loss, so there wasn't. Once we determined that, it was, everything else was kind of a moot point. He got out here pretty quick. Said he would have our report done by Friday.
Right, I think this other gentleman from Barge may have had something.
Oh, I didn't see.
Well, you had mentioned lots to learn from the citizens. One thing particularly, those folks around where it was flooded, if you can like mark, like on your house or how high the water got. When we do a model, we'll need to calibrate it to make sure that we're somewhat close. And the more spots we have to calibrate to, the better.
I know that Miss Poston maybe has marked her walls. I don't know if any of that, Mr. Crowder has as well.
Mr. Rogers has got
And
it.
Mr. Rogers has too, so hopefully that will be able to help you in Charlie as you said.
There's 7 acres in that pond.
Excuse me.
There's
7
7
acres.
acres in that pond. I've got a plat of it right here. And Doc Hill owned it. And here's the lots, and all was put along the bypass. That's the reason there's so much water in there, it covers a whole lot of ground.
Mr. Rogers, do you care to maybe get with our engineers, before they leave, maybe? Do you care to do that, Carl?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I can tell them what the old people told me that happened in the 50s and 60s.
That's good.
And that's how I know what I know about it.
Yeah. Charlie, if you would, if you'll just see Mr. Rogers before you leave there, you can go back in the back of the office there. Is there any questions here for, Mr. Massengill?
I think Pat had something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I hate to keep saying stuff, but one more thing. Curtis, when I come and talked to you the first time, right after the flood, I know you told me then that 2 years ago, that you all had an engineer to draw up plans for a pipe. And you brought it before the Board of Aldermen, and that it was voted down. You still have the plans and you still have the engineer, so what's with that?
So we had a drainage, plan, and the board did not go through with it. I talked to Charlie Smith about that, and it was just a drainage plan for really all over town. Now, Charlie, she asked a question if those plans still exist, I don't know.
Yeah, what we did, and it's been now, almost 5 years. We did a, stormwater ordinance, okay? So a stormwater ordinance didn't develop any kind of plans for any specific drainage problems. A stormwater ordinance helps you manage how development happens so that you don't end up with flooding problems or big erosion problems and things like that. So we put together a model stormwater ordinance, but it didn't have anything to do with any specific pipes or specific fixes. It's a way to, like I said, it's a way to manage how development happens and how flooding issues can be prevented.
Yeah, but since then, you know, had that ordinance been in place, there's been some businesses that has developed in the last 5 years. Particularly over around the bypass, there's a couple of business owners here that has developed their property. So the point, I guess, that I was telling Ms. Poston, maybe if we would have had that in place, would have sure helped a whole lot.
Yeah, it sure would.
I want to clarify that, please. Was that something that was a written plan that this body needed to adopt as a formal plan, or was it a proposal to spend money to develop additional drainage systems?
No, it was an ordinance. So I actually have it here with me, but.
Okay, well, can somebody help me understand why this body would vote down an ordinance that has something to do with stormwater? Is there any, why did that get voted down? What's the rocket science about stormwater ordinance?
I don't remember voting on it myself, but it's probably because you wasn't here, Kelly.
And I wasn't here either. Several wasn't here at that time.
I remember voting on it.
So we just get a copy of that so they can take a look at it as well. Is there any other questions for Mr. Massengill?
Well, I'd like to say one more thing. When FEMA comes into a place, how do they know how much damage we have? Because none of us were contacted about how much damage or how much we've lost, or we've had to relocate businesses and everything. So how does anybody know how much we've lost if nobody asks?
They don't ask about businesses. The small businesses is part of an operation. They ask about homes and they ask about uninsured county and city losses. That's all they ever ask us about. And they change every year. The rules change every year. I like it. It's difficult. What people would consider damage
Yeah,
and what I consider damage
yeah.
are two way different spectrums.
I don't understand why, and this is like, in some of the other counties, like McCracken County, Kentucky, right now, because they didn't have, they interviewed all these people that's lost everything. And there's maybe 50 families that's lost everything, but because there wasn't 80 families, these 50 families just suffer and don't get anything. You think that, I mean, that
That's
just
right.
don't make sense.
You have to entire city and county, we did not have 25 people in homes, in the residence. And we had people that had a basement that might have been flooded, but FEMA doesn't count basements. FEMA only counts it if it goes up into the living space, and it has to go so many inches up on the, I think it's above your plug-ins in the home. I don't know how many inches that is exactly. I think it's 12 or 14 inches, but it has to go up on the sheet rock for it to be counted as damage. That's not even, maybe.
But that's sad for families that,
Oh, I
like
agree.
50 families that's lost everything, but because there wasn't 30 more families that's lost it, I mean, that just don't make
Well, I agree
sense.
with you. I agree. I agree with you. You're preaching to the choir.
Well, I know that's not you, but I mean,
It's just
for
not
FEMA,
fair.
I mean,
We argue with FEMA every time we come in, and this is publicized meeting, and FEMA, if you're listening, we argue with you every time you come in.
We do. We sure do. Okay, is there anything else for Mr. Massey?
I don't want to talk to Chris, I just want to make a comment. My name's Mickey Lever, I also have a business there right beside Lee and Pat. I didn't get as much damage as the rest of them, but I have two businesses, so I've been exceeding a lot more than most. The full growth and the flooding that we had down there, 30 inches over the Main State Highway, it was rough on us. But we had some issues, and yeah, we're gonna have to address what we've got, and I'll be glad to take everything that I can get to try to help, but we have some substantial damage. But the reason why I'm standing here is I wanna thank each and every one of you guys for calling me. What can we do? How can we help? You know, Rocky, everybody here was trying to out there to pump this water out for what we had going on. Because I'm gonna tell you something, if they would've brought them pumps in, or you guys would've brought pumps in, it'd been clear up inside my building, way up a lot higher, path would've been over the top of the roof. I mean, it was awful. And if it, Lee called me and said, hey man, it's getting worse, you need to get on over here. I could've been a lot worse shape, with the amount of water that was coming in. And you guys calling and saying, hey, what can we do to help? We're bringing more pumps in, Chris is bringing pumps in. I mean, these guys, the workers that were working for the county and the city, pumping that water out here at night. Let me tell you something, guys, that means a lot just in itself. I mean, I can complain all day long, but I think there needs to be a little bit of praise also, how hard these guys work. I mean, I was up here 2 o'clock one night and seeing these workers out here running in the rain trying to get this water away. So, I want to thank you guys for that. I want to thank you for your continued help and support on trying to get this to help us. Because I know you're not going to stop. I know you're going to try to keep helping us if we can get some kind of support there. But I do appreciate everything you guys did.
Thank you, Mickey. Okay, we're gonna, end the work session here. We'll take 5 minutes and, start the, city council meeting at 6:30.